Just 90 miles from Florida, there is a small island nation that has challenged the power of the United States for more than 60 years. That country is Cuba. But the real question is, why would the world's most powerful nation, the United States, keep targeting such a small Caribbean country? To understand this conflict, we have to go back to a revolution that changed history. In 1959, a revolutionary leader named Fidel Castro overthrew the U.S., backed dictator Fulgencio Batista, and took control of Cuba. At first, the United States hoped the new government would cooperate with them. But Castro had a very different vision for the country. He transformed Cuba into a communist state and formed a strong alliance with the Soviet Union, which, at that time, was the biggest rival of the United States during the Cold War. Soon after taking power, Castro nationalized many businesses in Cuba, including properties owned by American companies. These properties were worth billions of dollars. This decision angered the United States and quickly damaged relations between the two countries. Washington saw Cuba's shift toward communism as a serious threat, especially because it was happening so close to American borders. The tension became even more dangerous in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviet Union secretly installed nuclear missiles in Cuba. These missiles could reach major American cities within minutes. When the United States discovered this, it triggered one of the most dangerous moments in human history. For 13 tense days, the world stood on the edge of nuclear war. The United States demanded the removal of the missiles and placed a naval blockade around Cuba. Eventually, after intense negotiations, the Soviet Union agreed to remove the missiles, and the crisis ended. But the damage was already done. From that moment on, Cuba was seen by the United States as a potential security threat. To pressure the Cuban government, the United States introduced a strict economic embargo against Cuba. This embargo restricted trade, financial transactions, and investment between the two countries. The goal of these sanctions was simple: weaken Cuba's economy so that the communist government might collapse. However, decades later, the embargo is still in place. While some American leaders believe the sanctions are necessary to pressure the Cuban government, others argue that they mostly hurt ordinary Cuban citizens rather than political leaders. Over the years, tensions between the two countries have continued to rise and fall. The United States often criticizes Cuba for political repression and human rights issues. At the same time, Cuba has maintained close relationships with countries that are rivals of the United States. Even today, Cuba faces serious economic challenges, including shortages of fuel, electricity, and basic supplies. Many analysts believe that both internal economic problems and international sanctions have contributed to these struggles. There have been moments when relations seem to improve. Diplomatic efforts were made to restore communication and reopen embassies after decades of hostility. But the relationship remains complicated and fragile. So why does the United States continue to target Cuba? The reasons come down to three key factors: ideology, security, and influence. The clash between capitalism and communism, fears about national security, and the desire to maintain political influence in the region have shaped this rivalry for decades. More than 60 years later, the conflict between the United States and Cuba remains one of the longest political tensions in modern history. And the question still remains: will these two neighbors ever fully repair their relationship? Or will this Cold War rivalry continue far into the future? Welcome to D-Block. It's not conspiracy, just reality.